Patreon.com/the Walk-Off Podcast. $4 a month gets you in there. Let's talk AL playoff teams. The playoffs are no guarantee. We have expanded playoffs. It's 6 teams in each league now. There's no sure thing. Blue Jays with 92 wins last year had a good offseason. Let's not beat around the bush. They had a great offseason. So did a lot of other teams. And despite being one of the best teams on paper, the games still need to be played. So, where does that leave us? I was reading this article on BleacherReport.com. It's grading every MLB team's offseason thus far. This is from yesterday. I'll link to this article in the show notes if you want to listen to it or have a read yourself. But here's the gist of it, Craig. A lot of teams made a lot of improvement. So did the Jays. Who do we need to be worried about? 6 teams are making the playoffs. I'm looking at the standings right now. Houston, New York Yankees, Cleveland Guardians, Toronto Blue Jays, Seattle Mariners, Tampa Bay Rays. Those were the playoff teams in 2022. I think we're going to see different teams in 2023. Who's a threat? I want to start this by saying, of the AL East teams, this is according to Bleacher Report, and you know me, I always love seeing a non-Blue Jays website, a non-Sportsnet website, a non-TSN website, giving love to our Toronto Blue Jays and the moves that we've made this offseason. So, according to Bleacher Report, the AL East offseasons look like this. The Baltimore Orioles got a D for their offseason. The Red Sox got a C-. The Tampa Bay Rays got a C-. The New York Yankees got an A-. The Blue Jays got an A. Now, argue with me in the comments. Throw all your hatred for Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro and the terrible offseason that you think they had in the comments. But this neutral website is acknowledging that the Toronto Blue Jays had a gosh darn good offseason. And to add to that, I also want to just mention 3 MLB teams got a grade of an A+ this offseason. That being the Houston Astros, the New York Mets, and who was the third team that we were talking about? Texas Rangers.
Texas, yeah.
Also of note, LA Angels, A- this offseason. So if we're looking at teams to be weary of, I'm looking at the standings again here. So here's the order of the teams that missed the playoffs in the AL in 2022. Baltimore Orioles, Chicago White Sox, Boston Red Sox, Minnesota Twins, LA Angels, Texas Rangers. That leaves the 3 at the bottom: Detroit Tigers, Kansas City Royals, Oakland Athletics. Do any of those 3 teams at the bottom, do those feel like a threat to you to steal a playoff spot away from the Blue Jays? Detroit, Kansas City, or Oakland? I don't want to spend too much time if they're not a threat.
No, sir. No, absolutely not.
Okay. So, sorry to the Tigers, Royals, and Athletics fans. We're going to move on from there. Let's see who else we can eliminate. I don't think we can eliminate anybody else. Maybe Boston of these remaining teams. So let's look at, I'm going to pencil in the Astros, the Yankees, and the Guardians into playoff spots.
There's your 3 division winners.
Beyond that, we're looking at Toronto, Seattle, the Rays, Orioles, White Sox, Twins, Angels, and Rangers.
The Twins are the only team in. I see quite a bit of separation out of that. That's a page you and I are not on the same page here. I actually do think it's going to be the exact same teams making the playoffs in 2023. I see quite a gap here from the playoff teams to the next round of teams there. Texas, on the surface, it felt like Texas just spent money for the sake of making money. But when you're spending money, but when you really deep dive, they made some nice moves and plug some specific holes. I just don't see them being better than Seattle or Houston. The Angels. What is this? The fourth offseason in a row, Adam? We're going to say, hey, watch out for the Angels this year. But at some point, it's going to be true. And they spent very specific money on real nice lineup improvements this season as well. Brandon Drury was one of my real what's the word I want to look for? Not X factors, but he was an important free. I thought Brendan Drury really showed last season that he could be a real nice contributor to a winner, and he went out of his way to sign with LA. So he likes the cut of their jibs. So I think Anaheim and Minnesota as well. So those are some teams that I don't think will be far off. But at the end of the day, at the end of the season, I think there'll be a full week of baseball at the end of next season where it's just jockeying for positions for the wild card spots. I think it'll be determined by then. That
Really?
Tampa getting a C minus. Let's not, man. You know, my number one thing to caution Blue Jay fans is do not sleep on the Tampa Rays. The Tampa Rays own the Toronto Blue Jays. The Jays had a better record last season, yes, but Tampa was ravaged with injuries last season. I just don't see that being the case this season. So I think they're definitely in the playoffs. Seattle, as much as I did like that trade from the Blue Jays standpoint, Teoscar Hernandez mashes at that ballpark. He's going to hit 35 home runs this season for Seattle. They're going to get a full season of J-Rod there as well. They've got that pitching staff. They're going to be back. So Texas, the Minnesota, and LA, I think will be close. You're saying, Adam, which of these teams can we eliminate right now? For me, Boston, toss. Baltimore, toss. I don't understand the love that Baltimore is getting right now. I think they're at least a year away still. Their general manager said at the beginning of the offseason that, hey, after they picked up Kyle Gibson in that press conference, is okay, watch this now. It's to the moon now. And he was talking about the payroll. They added nobody. I have no idea what he was talking about. They did nothing after that. They've got a really good system. There's no doubt about it. But again, I still think that's a year away. So for me, Adam, Boston and Baltimore, toss them both.
Yeah, I think Boston, I'm saying toss as well. And look, these are going to be famous last words, right? These are going to come back to haunt me for sure when the Red Sox somehow wins the AL East. So we are going to start doing trivia nights once a month. We are going to be keeping score for prizes. We're going to be keeping a 12-month running tally of the leaderboards as well. So by December, someone will have the 2023 walk-off trivia crown, Blue Jays jersey, potentially more. We'll see how the more Patreon members we get, the more money we have to spend on these prizes. The prize for tomorrow is going to be a New Era fitted baseball cap. If you haven't yet, join, because the longer you wait, the harder time you're going to have getting that year-end prize.
I wonder if I can add to this here. So you guys are at 40 Patreon. How about this? If before it's go time tomorrow, if that's up to 50, I'll contribute a Ricky Tiedemann rookie card, 2 Ricky Tiedemann rookie cards. So the people who are 1 to 40 will be in that draw automatic. Remember, we got to get to 50 now. We got to get to 50 for this to unlock. So we get to 50 by the time it starts tomorrow. The 40 that were already Patreon members, we'll do 2 Ricky Tiedemann rookie cards in there, and we'll do a draw for those 10 or however many people it's going to be new as well. So up to 3 Ricky T rookie cards up for grabs. So help spread the word. All we need to do.
That's so generous,
it's not all
Craig.
we need to do, right, Adam? Because it's a climb, but let's do that. Let's do that. We get up to 50 by the time tomorrow hits, and you know what? If that happens as well, okay. We better do something for the winner as well. Maybe a Manoah rookie card or a Ricky T for the winner tomorrow as well. But for all 4 of these cards, Adam, for it to be unlocked, all of that has to happen. We got to be at least 50. So
all right,
walk off family, got some work to do.
Patreon.com/the walk-off podcast. $4 a month gets you in there. Yeah, I think Boston, I'm saying toss as well. And look, these are going to be famous last words, right? These are going to come back to haunt me for sure when the Red Sox somehow wins the AL East. Baltimore, like you said, the Kyle Gibson signing, the words afterwards. I think Baltimore misgauged what the market was going to be like. I think they did genuinely feel like they were going to be buyers. Via trade and via free agency. And then I think realized pretty quickly that the asking price, we're not willing to part with these guys yet. So that's how I feel about Baltimore. I think, look, if you're a Baltimore Orioles fan, kudos to you, and your team is going to be good eventually. That is a bandwagon worth sticking with. The future is bright in Baltimore. I just don't think it starts this year. I think there's going to
Mhm.
be a regression. And that's only because I think they wickedly overachieved last year. Um, I mean, as Blue Jays fans, we're well aware that the rise of a career path is not always just straight up, right? There are regressions along the way. Um, so I see that in Baltimore. I'm worried about Minnesota. Not as much as I feel like I should be, but they were pesky
Adam, I
with
wonder.
the White Sox and the Guardians. I felt like the Guardians kind of ran away with it towards the end of the season, but in early September, I was looking at that AL Central and I was thinking White Sox, Twins, and Guardians. This is anybody's race.
Mhm. Well, and
Um,
the White Sox got hit with the injury bug. So if I'm willing to say Tampa's going to be better this season just because of the built-in health, don't I have to admit that Chicago White Sox are the same idea?
yeah, absolutely. New manager in Chicago as well. LaRussa's gone.
Mhm.
That worked out good for them as he left towards the end of the season. Look, the Angels the Angels want so badly to be good, but they can't get out of their own way, it seems. I just I don't know. The Angels I'm gonna write the Angels off. I don't know what it is
Wow.
about them. The
Yes, you
rain
do. Yes, you do. You're just being nice because we see them write themselves off every damn year with their they look good on paper, and then the umpire all of a sudden says, "Okay, let's play ball," and now there's a problem.
Yeah, and like to the Angels trade Shohei Otani at some point in 2023. Get used to that question, right?
Jeez.
Is that going to be a running headline for the next 4 months, like right up until the trade deadline, right? Texas Rangers though. This what's not to like about the Texas Rangers? Where are you down on the Texas Rangers? Because 68 and 94 last year. This is a team that just added Jacob deGrom, Andrew Heaney. Andrew Heaney doesn't scare me. I mean, there was a speculation the Jays were in on him. I'm glad we didn't get him. Um, I'm much happier with Bassett than Heaney. But the Rangers are making a push. You don't spend
Mhm.
the way they spend without serious aspirations.
Yeah, I still don't like their outfield that much. I definitely don't like that bullpen. And that starting rotation, I think, has a lot of potential. Heaney was awesome last season, so it does have potential. But if we're having an open, honest conversation, we could wax poetically about Jacob deGrom until the cows come home. The truth is, we need to see him have a healthy season. I mean, I'm sorry with this. He's the Nate Pearson. Now, Nate Pearson's not at the level of deGrom, but it's the same thing. If we're trying to praise the season Nate Pearson could have, any Blue Jay fan could enter the chat and say, hey, wait a minute, that's a if, right? That's if he stays healthy. Well, it's the same if that applies with Jacob deGrom, in my opinion.
Yeah, Jacob deGrom, the talent is as good as it gets.
Oh my gosh.
All time
Wow.
talent, right? Can we agree on that? He's got all time talent. I mean,
He's got two pitches that are just as good as any pitches that have ever come out of anyone's hand in the history of baseball. He's got two of them for crying out loud. Like, he's incredible.
you know, I trumpet this all the time that the best ability is availability. And
Ability, nice. Yeah, totally true.
my to get to hockey for a second here, there's some really talented hockey players in the NHL right now. So this argument doesn't necessarily hold up anymore, but for most of my life, the conversation was, who's the greatest of all time? It's Wayne Gretzky, right? No questions asked. Pretty tough to argue with that. My counterpoint to that with Mario Lemieux was that Mario Lemieux, in my opinion, was the most talented of all time. But because he couldn't stay on the ice, I had no choice but to hand the reins to Wayne
Yeah.
Gretzky, right? Uh, Now looking at what guys like Connor McDavid are doing, we're talking different eras, right? So it's hard to compare, but there's some pretty talented hockey players that maybe are more talented than we've ever seen before. But that's just sports, right?
Mhm.
Um, but that's Jacob deGrom, elite talent. But I don't know. I don't know if here's we're getting ahead of ourselves, but just because we saw the Hall of Fame nods over the past week with Scott Rowland getting in, um, Fred McGriff in, former Blue Jay, Jacob deGrom, is he a Hall of Fame pitcher for you?
And we'd really have to. I don't have a good answer for you off the top of my head, Adam. We'd really have to dive into it because I would really want to see his peak years. And could we still argue that he's still in his peak years? So, off the top of my head, I do not have a good answer for you. I think your point here is that from a talent standpoint, I mean, isn't he first ballot? But back to your point, what about the availability, though, Greg? Right? What about the availability? So we'd have to deep dive that, Adam. I don't have a good answer off the top of my head. That from a talent standpoint, there's simply no doubt about it.
Yeah, I'm just pulled up his baseball reference page. 2018, 2019, back-to-back Cy Youngs. He's in top 10 in Cy Young voting. Seems like almost every year.
So we would have to see, is there even any precedence in the Baseball Hall of Fame for a
Yeah,
two-time,
we
for
would
a
have to look
multiple
at
Cy
that.
Young winner not in? We'd have to see if that's, I mean, so he might have written that ticket already.
Yeah, I'm looking at his innings pitched. 2014 made his MLB debut, 140 innings. That's a rookie season, so it is what it is. Uh, Second year, 191 innings. That's a full season. 2016, 148. Then going into his Cy Young, I guess, breakout years, however you want to call it, 201, 217, 204. And then in the COVID shortened season, 68 innings. Nobody got too many innings that year. 2021, 92 innings. And then last year, 64 innings. There's an argument to be made that he's already punched his ticket, but that's tough, man. That's a tough call.
Well, the availability is not there. You did not just read out, if we were just doing a blind reveal and we didn't know it was deGrom, so we didn't have his stuff in our head, and you were just doing a blind reveal of those stats, I definitely think we'd be sitting here saying, "Ooh, what about the availability?" So it's a legit question.
I'm looking at 4 dominant years in baseball.
Boy, I mean
That's
that's not enough of a peak. But again, I'm going to ask: is there even a two-time Cy Young winner that's not in the Hall of Fame? Right? That
I
might be the
know.
get out of jail free card right there.
That might be it. That might be it. I don't know. For me, yeah, I go back on this all the time on the Hall of Fame. Like I was listening to Blair and Barker and their thoughts on Scott Rowland getting in. And the way Barker puts it, and I in my bones, this is kind of how I feel, is there ever a point where you're playing either with the guy or against the guy, or even just as a viewer at home watching a guy and telling yourself, we're playing against a Hall of Famer right now. Right. And that was his argument against Scott Rowland. Or
Oh wow! Oh, my answer is yes. I thought he was a Hall of Famer when he came to the Blue Jays. Okay, so I like the point, but I'll disagree with
okay.
with the conclusion there.
Uh maybe someone in the comments can correct me. I was listening to that before bed, so maybe I was half asleep and I misheard that, but that was my impression of Rowland. When you look at a guy like Justin Verlander, when you look at a guy like Max Scherzer, when you look at a guy like Clayton Kershaw, these are names that absolutely feel like for 10 years we've been talking about them as these guys
Yeah,
are Hall of Famers.
and it hasn't mattered, Adam. You just mentioned pitchers that have been in multiple different teams in multiple different leagues. They don't need the situation to be right. They go into situations and dominate because they're that good.
Yeah.
Those are first ballot Hall of Famers. Absolutely yes.
We're kind of off the topic here with Jacob deGrom. Is he a Hall of Famer as far as the AL playoff teams go? So let's try and steer back here and get out of this topic. But you think we're sticking with the chalk as far as AL playoff
Yes.
teams in 2020 2023?
Not only are we sticking with the chalk, Adam, but by September 20th, it's already cast. By the last 2 weeks of the season, we're just noticing playoff standings. That's it. It's done. Adam, the Blue Jays won 92 games last season. I want to mention this. The Blue Jays won 92 games last season. For anyone who's concerned, because I'm here sitting here saying as a guarantee they will make the playoffs next season. 92 wins in 2022. I do think it's an improved team, but let's look at this. And I've written this down here so I don't forget it. With this new balanced schedule, which I hate, but the new balanced schedule, the 2022 Toronto Blue Jays, 0 games against Miami. Bottom feeders Miami, 3 coming up this season. No games last season against bottom feeder Arizona, 3 this season. No games last season against bottom feeder Washington Nationals, 3 this season. None against bottom feeder Colorado, 3 this season. A dozen games that have come off of having to play the Rays and the damn Yankees, and now you're playing the bottom feeder. So that 92 wins, just from the new rules, Adam, I think automatically improve. And 92 wins will be enough to make the playoffs this season. But I don't even think the Blue Jays win 92. I think it's going to be north of that. Our friend Lewis, Jay's kid on Twitter, I was talking to him the other day, and he really sees 100 wins coming. Blue Jays have never had 100 wins in their franchise history. He thinks it's this year.
I'd love to see it. Great points about those bottom feeder teams getting 4 extra series in there.
A dozen games, Adam. A dozen games where you don't have to play. That's at least 3, if not 6, that you don't have to go to the House of Horrors in the Trop. Instead, you're going to flipping Colorado or Washington. Yes, please.
All right, I'll give you that. I like your guarantee. Blue Jays, pencil it in now.
Sir.
Making the playoffs in 2023.